There's something I find fascinating about a film that looks incredible, sounds ambitious, and yet leaves me feeling strangely disconnected. Marty Supreme is one of this year's Best Picture nominees, but walking out of the cinema, I felt like I just tasted something beautifully presented and deeply better. And that stayed with me, because on a craft level, there's a lot here I responded to. Set in the 50s, though it often sounds close to the 1980s, this film follows an ambitious, morally slippery entrepreneur determined to rise at any cost. Marty begins as an outsider with charm, bravado, through manipulation, opportunism and sheer ego. He climbs professionally, socially and financially. Relationships fracture, loyalty becomes transactional, and consequences feel negotiable. What we're watching is his ascent, and eventually the question of what kind of ending someone like this deserves. Where I was immediately drawn in was the texture. This is a beautiful film. The colour palette, very much in the lineage of Darius Condry, the cinematographer, has that murky bruised warmth, smoky interiors and deep ambers, heavy shadows that feel almost stained into the frame. As a filmmaker, I found myself leaning forward, studying it. It feels tactile, lived in, and then there's the music. An almost 1980s leaning soundtrack layered into the 1950s world. At times I found that contrast refreshing, it gives the film a pulse, but in other moments it pulled me out. Not in a provocative way, just in a way that made me feel aware of the choice. Once you're aware of the choice, you're slightly outside of the story. Narratively, it feels very modern. Scenes arrive quickly, moments spike fast, emotional beats are compressed. There's almost a TikTok rhythm to it, but depth takes patience. And for me, this film took a long time to become engaging. Not in a deliberate slow burn kind of way, but in a when is this settling into itself kind of way. It does eventually find its momentum. I just wasn't fully with it by that point. Where I struggle most though is with Marty himself. He's a narcissist, not tragically flawed, not morally complex in a way that invites curiosity. He's selfish, he's manipulative, he's often unpleasant. Now this isn't automatically a problem. Some of cinema's most compelling characters are deeply flawed. But those films either interrogate that behaviour or allow us to see the cost of it. Here I never quite felt that tension. At times the film seems to support this behaviour, even reward it, and that left me conflicted. Because if we're meant to gradually warm to him, I didn't. And if we're meant to critique him, I'm not convinced the film goes far enough. By the ending, I didn't feel catharsis. I felt unconvinced. Personally, I think the story might have been stronger and braver had it ended sooner. One thing I genuinely didn't expect though was Kevin O'Leary. Yes, that Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, and he's excellent. Measured, grounded, controlled. In a film that often feels driven by ego and noise, he brings stillness, and I find myself drawn to that. So here's where I land. Marty Supreme is visually accomplished, texturally rich, sonically bold. There are moments I admire, even really admired, but thematically I'm not sure the subject matter earns the reverence it seems to want. It's a film that appears to admire its central figure more than I ever could, and as a Best Picture nominee, it feels like the outsider in the room. Impressive to look at, but something I didn't connect with. Maybe this is one of those films that will find its audience eventually. I just wasn't it.